Hi there! This is Ishel Bulawin, the little teacher of Studyhub 8. In this video presentation, we will discuss about the learning principles and its proponents. Before we begin, allow me to introduce the members of this study hub. Let us now discuss the first learning principle, which is the psychoanalytic and psychosexual theory, which was proposed by Sigmund Freud. But who is Sigmund Freud? Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, was a physiologist, medical doctor, psychologist, and influential thinker of the early 20th century. Freud initially wanted to become a law professional, but later developed an interest in medicine. His primary interest included neurology and neuropathology. He was particularly interested in the condition of hysteria and its psychological causes. In 1885, Freud received a grant to study with Jean-Martin Charcot, a renowned neurologist who used hypnosis to treat women suffering from what was then called hysteria. This experience sparked Freud's interest in the unconscious mind, a theme that would recur throughout his career. In 1886, Freud returned to Vienna, married Martha Bernays, and set up a private practice to treat nervous disorders. His work during this time led to his revolutionary concepts of the human mind and the development of the psychoanalytic method. Sigmund Freud elaborated the theory that the mind is a complex energy system, the structural investigation of which is the proper province of psychology. He articulated and refined the concepts of the unconscious infantile sexuality and repression, and he proposed a tripartite account of the mind's structure, all as part of a radically new conceptual and therapeutic frame of reference for the understanding of human psychological development and the treatment of abnormal mental conditions. Let's now talk about Sigmund Freud's theories and contributions, not only to psychology but to all aspects in learning. There are 6 theories that Freud proposed, and we are going to talk about it all in the next slides. The first theory is the psychoanalytic theory. This theory is a therapeutic technique for treating mental health disorders by exploring unconscious thoughts and feelings. The second theory is the unconscious mind. This theory is a topographical model of the mind, describing the features of the mind's structure and function. Freud used the analogy of an iceberg to describe the 3 levels of the mind. The third theory, which is the personality, Freud proposed a tripartite model of the human mind composed of the id, ego, and superego. The id represents primal desires, the ego balances the id and reality, and the superego represents societal norms and morals. The id, ego, and the superego have most commonly been conceptualized as 3 essential parts of the human personality. The fourth theory is the psychosexual development. This theory suggests that early childhood experiences and stages, which are the oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital, shape our adult personality and behavior. His theory of psychosexual stages of development is predicated by the concept that childhood experiences create the adult personality and that problems in early life would come back to haunt the individual as a mental illness. Fifth theory is dream analysis. Freud believed dreams were a window into the unconscious mind and developed methods for analyzing dream content for repressed thoughts and desires. Dreams represent unfulfilled wishes from the id, trying to break through to the conscious, but because these desires are often unacceptable, they are disguised or censored using such defenses as symbolism. Freud also believed that by undoing the dream work, the analyst could study the manifest content and interpret the latent content by understanding the symbols. The sixth and the last theory that Sigmund Freud proposed is the defense mechanisms. He proposed several defense mechanisms like repression and projection, which the ego employs to handle the tension and conflicts among the id, superego, and the demands of reality. Freud's innovative treatment of human actions, dreams, and indeed of cultural artifacts as invariably possessing implicit symbolic significance has proven to be extraordinarily fruitful and has had massive implications for a wide variety of fields, including psychology, anthropology, semiotics, and artistic creativity and appreciation. However, Freud's most important and frequently reiterated claim that with psychoanalysis he had invented a successful science of the mind remains the subject of much critical debate and controversy. The next theories that we're going to talk about is Jean Piaget. Jean Piaget is a Swiss psychologist who was the first to make a systematic study of the acquisition of understanding in children. He is thought by many to have been the major figure in 20th century developmental psychology. Piaget's early interests were in zoology. At the University of Neuchâtel, he studied zoology and philosophy, receiving his doctorate in the former in 1918. Soon afterward, however, he became interested in psychology, combining his biological training with his interest in epistemology. Piaget's concept of developmental stages caused a re-evaluation of older ideas of the child, of learning, and of education. If the development of certain thought processes was on a genetically determined timetable, simple reinforcement was not sufficient to teach concepts. The child's mental development would have to be at the proper stage to assimilate those concepts. Piaget reached his conclusions about child development through his observations and conversations with his own children as well as others. He asked them ingenious and revealing questions about simple problems he had devised. And then, he formed a picture of their way of viewing the world by analyzing their mistaken responses. Jean Piaget is famous for his theories regarding changes in cognitive development. Cognitive development occurs as we move from infancy to adulthood. It also results from the interplay between innate capabilities and environmental influences. Piaget's theory of cognitive development suggests that children move through 4 different stages of intellectual development, which reflect the increasing sophistication of children's thought. The first of the 4 stages Piaget uses to define cognitive development is the sensory motor stage. During the beginning of this stage, the infant lives in the present. It does not yet have a mental picture of the world stored in its memory, therefore it does not have a sense of object permanence. If it cannot see something, then it does not exist. This is why you can hide a toy from an infant while it watches, but it will not search for the object once it has gone out of sight. Main achievement during this stage is object permanence. Knowing that an object still exists, even if it's hidden, it requires the ability to form a mental representation. Towards the end of this stage, the general symbolic function begins to appear where children show in their play that they can use one object to stand for one another. Language starts to appear because they realize that words can be used to represent objects and feelings. Piaget's second stage of intellectual development is the preoperational stage. It takes place between 2 and 7 years. At the beginning of this stage, the child does not use operations, so the thinking is influenced by the way things appear rather than logical reasoning. Furthermore, the child is egocentric. He assumes that other people see the world as he does. This has been shown in the 3 Mountains study. As the pre-operational stage develops, egocentrism declines and children begin to enjoy the participation of another child in their games, and let's pretend play becomes more important. By the beginning of the concrete operational stage, the child can use operations so she can conserve quantities, and she realizes that people see the world in a different way that he does, and he has improved in inclusion task. Children still have difficulties with abstract thinking. The stage is called concrete because children can think logically much more successfully if they can manipulate real materials or pictures of them. Piaget considered the concrete stage a major turning point in the child's cognitive development because it marks the beginning of logical or operational thought. This means the child can work things out internally in their head rather than physically try things out in the real world. The formal operational period begins at about age 11. As adolescents enter the stage, they gain the ability to think in an abstract manner, the ability to combine and classify items in a more sophisticated way, and the capacity for a higher order reasoning. Adolescents can think systematically and reason about what might be as well as what is, and this allows them to understand politics, ethics, and science fiction, as well as to engage in scientific reasoning. Adolescents can deal with abstract ideas, and they can understand division and fractions without having to actually divide things up and solve hypothetical problems. Let us now talk about Erik Erikson and his stages of psychosocial development. Erik Erikson was an ego psychologist who developed one of the most popular and influential theories of development. While his theory was impacted by the psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud's work, Erikson's theory centered on psychosocial development rather than psychosexual development. Erikson maintained that personality develops in a predetermined order through 8 stages of psychosocial development. From infancy to adulthood, during each stage, the person experiences a psychosocial crisis that could possibly or negatively affect personality development. There are 8 stages that make up the psychosocial development, and we will discuss it in the next slides. But let us first find out what exactly did Erikson's theory of psychosocial development entail. Much like Sigmund Freud, Erikson believed that personality developed in a series of stages. Erikson's theory described the impact of social experience across the whole lifespan. Erikson was interested in how social interaction and relationship played a role in the development and growth of human beings. Erikson's theory was based on what is known as the epigenetic principle. This principle suggests that people grow in a sequence that occurs over time and in the context of a larger community. The first stage of Erikson's theory of psychosocial development occurs between birth and 1 year of age and is the most fundamental stage in life. Because an infant is utterly dependent, developing trust is based on the dependability and quality of the child's caregivers. At this point in development, the child is utterly dependent upon adult caregivers for everything they need to survive, including food, love, warmth, safety, and nurturing. If a caregiver fails to provide adequate care and love, the child will come to feel that they cannot trust or depend upon the adults in their life. If a child successfully develops trust, the child will feel safe and secure in the world. Failure to develop trust will result in fear and a belief that the world is inconsistent and unpredictable. The second stage is autonomy versus shame and doubt. This stage of Erikson's theory of psychosocial development takes place during early childhood and is focused on children developing a greater sense of personal control. Children who successfully complete this stage feel secure and confident, while those who do not are left with a sense of inadequacy and self-doubt. Erickson believed that achieving a balance between autonomy and shame and doubt would lead to will, which is the belief that the children can act with intention within reason and limits. The third stage is initiative versus guilt. This stage of psychosocial development takes place during the preschool years. At this point in psychosocial development, children begin to assert their power and control over the world through directing play and other social interactions. Children who are successful at this stage feel capable and able to lead others. Those who fail to acquire these skills are left with a sense of guilt, self-doubt, and lack of initiative. The fourth stage is industry versus inferiority. This psychosocial stage takes place during the early school years from approximately age 5 to 11. Through social interactions, children begin to develop a sense of pride in their accomplishments and abilities. Children need to cope with new social and academic demands. Success leads to a sense of competence, while failure results in feelings of inferiority. The fifth stage is identity versus confusion. This stage takes place during the often turbulent teenage years. This stage plays an essential role in developing a sense of personal identity, which will continue to influence behavior and development for the rest of a person's life. Teens need to develop a sense of self and personal identity. Success leads to an ability to stay true to yourself, while failure leads to role confusion and a weak sense of self. The sixth stage is intimacy versus isolation. Young adults need to form intimate, loving relationships with other people. Success leads to strong relationships, while failure results in loneliness and isolation. This stage covers the period of early adulthood when people are exploring personal relationships. Erickson believed it was vital that people develop close, committed relationships with other people. Those who are successful at this step will form relationships that are enduring and secure. The seventh stage is the generativity versus stagnation. Adults need to create or nurture things that will outlast them, often by having children or creating a positive change that benefits other people. Success leads to feelings of usefulness and accomplishment, while failure results in shallow involvement in the world. The final stage is integrity versus despair. This stage occurs during old age and is focused on reflecting back on life. At this point in development, people look back on the events of their lives and determine if they are happy with the life that they live or if they regret the things they did or didn't do. Erickson's theory differed from many others because it addressed development throughout the entire lifespan, including old age. Older adults need to look back on life and feel a sense of fulfillment. Success at this stage leads to feelings of wisdom, while failure results in regret, bitterness, and despair.
Hello everyone! Before I will start, let me introduce myself. My name is Hanimiel Abel from BSED English 1B, and my assigned topic was Social Cultural Theory by Lev Vygotsky, Ecological Theory by Brodben-Frenner, and Classical Conditioning by Ivan Pavlov. And now, I will discuss the Social Cultural Theory by Lev Vygotsky. So, Lev Vygotsky was born on November 17, 1896 in Orsha, a city in the Western Russian Empire. In 1917, he earned a law degree at Moscow State University, where he studied a range of topics including sociology, linguistics, psychology, and philosophy. February 22, 2023, Vygotsky claimed that we are born with 4 elementary mental functions. The contribution of Vygotsky, he is credited with establishing the foundation of cultural psychology and cultural historical theory, which emphasized that human change and development, particularly the development of our thinking, is influenced by society and culture. The examples of social cultural are the influence the feelings, attitudes, values, beliefs, and interactions of a population group. Examples include social classes, religious norms, wealth distribution, language, business and health practices, social values, and attitude towards work. So, Vygotsky has a four principles theory: the attention, sensation, perception, and memory. It is our social and cultural environment that allows us to use these elementary skills to develop and finally gain higher mental functions. And now we will proceed to Yuri Bronfenbrenner, who was born on April 29, 1917 in Moscow, Russian Empire. He studied at Cornell University, Harvard University, and University of Michigan. According to Bronfenbrenner's theory, there are 5 environmental systems that interact with each other and influence child development. These 5 systems are microsystem, mesosystem, exosystem, macrosystem, and chronosystem. A real-life example of Bronfenbrenner's biological theory is the relationship between the child and his or her peer group. The direct relationship between the two will fall into Bronfenbrenner's microsystem because it deals with immediate relationships. Peer groups in school have a great influence on a child. Another real-life example of Bronfenbrenner's biological theory is between family and school. An example of this is when the parents join the PTA. When the family is involved with school, it becomes a positive aspect for children. Children usually tend to view school as a boring and stressful environment. So, Yuri's contribution is he developed the ecological system theory to explain how everything in the child's environment influences the child's development, labeling different aspects or levels of the environment that influence this development. Yuri Bronfenbrenner's most important and impactful ideas are that a human's development is shaped by the interaction between an individual and their environment. His first model, the ecological system theory, focused strongly on childhood. Yuri's ecological system theory proposed that human development unfolds in a nested set of systems involving cultural, social, economic, and political elements, not merely psychological ones. These systems and their interactions can nurture or stifle optimal development. Bronfenbrenner's ecological system theory focuses on the quality and context of the child's environment. He states that a child develops, the interaction within these environments becomes more complex. This complexity can arise as the child's physical and cognitive structure grow and mature. Bronfenbrenner's theory defines complex layers of an environment, each having an effect on a child's development. This theory has recently been renamed bioecological system theory to emphasize that a child's own biology is a primary environment fueling her development. And lastly, Ivan Petrovich Pavlov was born on September 14, 1849, in the village of Ryazan, Russia, where his father was the village priest. His earliest studies were focused on theology, but reading Charles Darwin's On the Origin of the Species had a powerful influence on his future interest. Ivan Petrovich Pavlov was a Russian and Soviet experimental neurologist and physiologist, known for his discovery of classical conditioning through his experiments with dogs. Some of the dogs' names were Bierka, Krasavietz, Beck, Milka, Ikarjoy, Filmus, Arlekin, Russian, Toy, and Murashka. The Pavlov Institute in conclusion near St. Petersburg, Russian has labeled photographs of each of Pavlov's dogs. Pavlov's findings were important to behaviorism because they demonstrated how animals learned about events in their environment. He realized that the animal would learn to associate one stimulus with another stimulus when they were frequently paired together. Pavlov's theory of learning is built on unconditioned or conditioned stimulus and response. The first time you experience a stimulus, it has little to no impact on you. But after repetition, it will elicit a specific response from you. These stages are before and after conditioning. So, what is classical conditioning theory? So, classical conditioning theory states that behaviors are learned by connecting a neutral stimulus with a positive one, such as Pavlov's dog's hearing a bell, neutral, and expecting food, it is a positive. The learned behavior is called a conditioned response. There are 4 types of classical conditioning, including unconditioned, i.e. stimulus, conditioned stimulus. Pavlov contributed to many areas of physiology, neurology, and psychology. Most of his work involved research in temperament, conditioning, and involuntary reflex actions. Pavlov performed and directed experiments on digestion, which earned him the 1904 Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine. So, general classical conditioning involves the pairing of 2 stimulus events, typically a neutral conditioned stimulus and an unconditioned stimulus. That an association between these 2 events is learned is reflected in the acquisition of a conditioned response to the CF.
Everyone, my name is Patricia Joynal, and now let us talk about the 3 theories, namely B.F. Skinner, Howard Gardner, and John Flavel, together with their theory, definitions of term, contribution, application, and summary. So let us first know who is B.F. Skinner, or Bruce Frederick Skinner. B.F. Skinner was born on March 20, 1904 and died on August 18, 1990. He was an American philosopher, inventor, author, and social philosopher, considered the father of behaviorism. Then he was the Edgar Pierce of psychology in Harvard University in 1958 until his retirement in 1974. So let us now move on or know the theory of B.F. Skinner and the definitions of the definition of terms of his theory. So the name of the theory of B.F. Skinner is operant conditioning. And then the definitions of terms of his theory is Skinner developed behavior analysis, especially the philosophy of radical behaviorism, and founded the experimental analysis of behavior, a school of experimental analysis of behavior, a school of experimental psychology. And then he also used operant conditioning to strengthen behavior. Considering the rate of response considering the rate of response strength to study operant conditioning. So he invented the operant conditioning chamber, and to measure rate, invented the cumulative recorder. And using these tools, he and her Charles Foster produced Skinner's most influential work outlined in their 1957. So the book Schedule of Reinforcement. Contributions. Skinner's idea of conditioning influence thoughts about child development are that a child's behavior could be impacted through positive and negative reinforcement. It also contributes the behavioral theory of personality, explaining that we respond in certain way based on a learning experience. For summary of the theory of B.F. Skinner, operant conditioning sometimes referred to as instrumental conditioning as a method of learning that uses rewards and punishment to modify behavior. And then through operant conditioning, a behavior that is rewarded is likely to be repeated, and behavior that is punished will rarely occur. The applications of B.F. Skinner theory, we have accusation, extension, spontaneous recovery, generalization, and discriminations. And for accusation, it is when the organism connects the behavior with the stimulus. And then for extension, when you stop pairing stimulus with behavior. And then for spontaneous recovery, after a rest period, you pair the stimulus with behavior again. And then for generalization, behavior is affected by the stimulus similar to the original. And then for discrimination, behavior is not affected by stimulus similar to the original.
Hi everyone, my name is Patricia Joynal, and the second theory that we will be discussing is all about Howard Gardner. Short background for Howard Gardner. So Howard Gardner was born on July 11, 1943, Scranton, Pennsylvania, USA. He was an American psychologist and author, best known for his theory multiple intelligences. First presented in a frame of mind, the theory of multiple intelligences. The theory practiced in 1983 and subsequently refined extended in multiple intelligence. The theory practiced in 1993, intelligence reframed multiple intelligence for the 21st century in 1999, and school leaders and special educators to embrace the notion that there are many ways to be intelligent. Then the Howard Gardner theory is multiple intelligence. Definitions of terms for multiple intelligence. So multiple intelligence is defined as a theory created by Gardner, who posits that there are numerous intelligence that individuals may possess. These include interpersonal, bodily kinesthetic, linguistic, logical, mathematical, naturalistic, spiritual, and musical. Contributions of multiple intelligence. The theory of multiple intelligence is important because it allows us to think about the different types of mental strength and abilities. Learning more about which types of intelligence you lean towards may help you to learn to recognize your own preferences. Summary of multiple intelligence. So multiple intelligence refers to a theory describing the different ways students learn and acquires information. These multiple intelligences range from the use of words, numbers, pictures, and music, to the importance of social interactions, introspections, physical movement and being tuned with the nature. Applications for Gardner's multiple intelligence. Gardner's multiple intelligence theory can be used for curriculum development, activities, planning, instructions, selections of course, and related assessment strategies.
Hi everyone, my name is Jenna Patricia, and the third theories that we'll be discussing is all about John Flavel. John Flavel short background, circa 1927 to 1691. John Flavel was an English Puritan Presbyterian minister and author. Name of his theory is metacognitive. Definition of terms of metacognitive. Metacognition skills is the process of thinking and learning about one's own. Metacognition intentional thinking about how you think and learn. Contributions of metacognitive. So metacognitive skills play an important role in improving students' learning results. Using metacognitive skills, students are aware about what they are thinking so that they can monitor their actions. Metacognition can make the students aware of their own strengths and weaknesses and learning.
The summary of metacognitive. So metacognition in one's ability to use a prior.
Good day everyone, I am Francine Liza Sibuka, and for today I will discuss to you the three theories. First, about the law of learnings by Edward Thorndike. Second is Gagne's learning theories, Robert M. Gagne, and the last is social learning theories by Albert Banduro. So first, about Edward Lee Thorndike. Edward Lee Thorndike was an American sociologist who spent his entire career at Teachers College, Columbia University. His work on comparative sociology and the learning process led to the theories of connectionism and helped lay the scientific foundation for the modern educational sociology. He also worked on the solving industrial problems such as employees, exams, and testing. He was a member of the board of the Sociological Corporation and served as a president of the American Sociological Association in 1912. A review of General Sociology survey published in 2002 ranked Thorndike as the ninth most cited sociologist of the 20th century. Edward Thorndike had a powerful impact on reinforcement theory and behavior analysis, providing the basics formwork from the empirical laws in behavior sociology with his law of effect. Through his contribution to the behavioral sociologist field came his field may field came his major impacts on education, where the law of effect has great influence in the classroom. Thorndike's contribute a great deal to the sociologists. He influenced an animal sociologists, especially those who focus on behavior plasticity, greatly contribute to the future of that field. In addition to have paved the way towards behaviorism, his contribute to the measurement influence philosophy and the administration and the practice of education, military administration, um, industrial personnel administration, civil service, and many public and private social services. Thorndike influenced many schools of sociologists as Gestalt sociologists. Sociologists study by the condition reflects and behavioral and sociologists all study Thorndike's research as a starting point. Thorndike was a uh, compa- uh, contemporary of John B. Watson and Ivan Pavlov. However, unlike Watson, Thorndike introduced the concept of reinforcement. Thorndike was the first to apply sociological principles to the area of learning. His research led to many theories and laws of learning. His theory of learning, especially the law of effect, is most often considered to be his great achievement. In 1929, Thorndike addressed his early theory of learning and claimed that he had been wrong. After further research, he was forced to denounce his law of exercise completely because he found that practice alone did not strengthen an association, and that time alone did not awaken association. He also got rid of half of the law of effect after finding that satisfying state of affairs strengthen an association, but punishment is not an effective in motivating behavior. He placed a great emphasis on consequences of behavior as setting the foundation for what is and is not learned. His work represents the transition from the school of communi- con, con, fac- factionism to behaviorism and enable psychology to focus on learning theories. Thorndike's work would eventually be a major influence to B.F. Skinner and Clark Hull. Skinner, like Thorndike, put animals in boxes and observed them to see what they are able to learn. The learner theories of Thorndike and Pavlov were later synthesized by Clark Hull. His work on motivating and attitude formation directly affected studies on human nature as well as social order. Thorndike's research drove comparative sociology for 50 years and influenced countless sociologists over that period of time, and even still today.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a psychological theory that explains human motivation and development. It was developed by Abraham Maslow. It is frequently perceived as a pyramid with 5 levels, with the most fundamental sociological requirements at the bottom and more complex ones like self-actualization and self-esteem at the top. This theory proposes that before pursuing higher level demands, people must first satisfy lower level ones, making it a crucial framework for comprehending human behavior and motivation. Called experiential learning. Experiential learning, developed by David Cole, is a learning theory that emphasizes the importance of concrete experiences, reflection, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation in the learning process. It highlights the learning is a cycle involving these 4 stages and that people learn best when they engage in experiences and then reflect on them to build knowledge and skills. Learning Styles Inventory Model. The Learning Styles Inventory Model by Dunn and Dunn is an approach to understanding individual learning preferences. It suggests that people have different learning styles and that teachers can adapt their instructions to better match these styles. The model identifies factors such as environmental, emotional, sociological, psychological, and psychological preferences that impact how individuals learn. Teachers can use this model to create more tailored and effective learning experiences for their students.